Alrighty, good day guys, this is Aussie Azure Tech here. Today we're going to be doing an episode where we deploy virtual networks via ARM templates in Azure DevOps, and this is so that we understand Azure networking. Also, we get more exposure to Azure DevOps and we build on our skills of creating pipelines, seeing what we can do and stuff. So yeah, let's get started. So as you can see on the screen, I have a simple network diagram for me. So I have a subscription called Azure Sponsor Subscription, and in that subscription I have VNet 1 here. So VNet is going to be our encompassing virtual network in Azure, and just remember that virtual networks cannot mix with other virtual networks, so you can't have an address space that overlaps with another virtual network. So yeah, over here we'll have one VNet, and then we'll divide that particular VNet into two subnets, subnet 1 and subnet 2. And over here it is going to be easy. They're just going to be two simple subnets, and we just want, for demonstration purpose, we're going to be doing an ARM deployment so that it is easy for us when we do things. And over here I'm going to be walking you through how to set up an ARM template, how to set up the Visual Studio Code environment so that you can actually start deploying ARM templates or developing ARM templates. And then after that, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating the pipelines so that you can do a proper CI/CD deployment for this. Just validate your input, and then once all the validations and checks have completed, we're going to be deploying these Azure resources into Azure. So let's get started, guys. So the first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to be creating a resource group in Azure. So let's go back to our Azure portal, and what we'll do is we'll look into the resource groups, and then what we can do is we'll create a new resource group just for this. Yeah, it's part of the Azure's past sponsorship subscription. So we're going to be calling this VNet Demo 1. So yeah, East US is where we want to be creating this. It's reviewed, it passed all of the validations, so yes, we are good. And now we have first deployed our resource group. Alright guys, so we are back in Visual Studio Code right now. So let me just help you guys get started with ARM templates. So on the right side or on the left, depending on how you actually set up Visual Studio Code, you're going to the extensions, and we're going to be searching for Azure Resource Manager. And yep, just give it a second. So this is the tools that we want, and what this does is it actually gives us the language support for Azure Resource Manager in Visual Studio, so that it'll properly take care of all of our syntax. And the other thing that I do like to do is the Azure Resource Manager snippets, and this one is an extension from Sam Kogan, and it's a really good extension. It fast tracks the way you can actually write ARM templates, and this is the best way to actually start doing this. So yeah, let's get started. So for the first thing, what we'll do is let's go back to the Explorer. Let's create a new file. Let's call this Azure deploy.json. Now what happens is Azure deploy.json is the way we're going to be naming our files, and the parameters associated with this should be Azure deploy.parameters.json, and we'll see how it goes. And so in order to get linting support, all I do is do ARM, and then I will do an exclamation, and this one gives me boilerplate for JSON, boilerplate JSON for ARM templates. So as you can see, I got the schema, the content version, parameters, variables, resources, and the outputs. So yeah, so it's almost ready to go. So here's the thing, I want a couple of parameters. So what I'll do is I'll just type param and just go to the ARM parameter. So what happens is now I have different parameters, and what I can do in this scenario is I'm just going to be filling out all of the parameters, and once I've done that, I will come back and explain that. So yeah, just see you guys in a sec. Guys, welcome back. I've just popped in all of my parameters, and now you can see. So in my parameter file, I have a parameter that is called vmnet name, and this vnet name, and this is the name of my vnet, and the type is a string. The metadata is just so that I can add some description to this, and I'm just putting the description as vnet name. And the second parameter that I do have is the address prefix for the vnet, and this also is of type string. And what this does is this tells Azure that this is the boundary of the entire VNet. For in this example, we can take as 10.0.0.0/16, and that includes a lot of these address spaces in this address prefix. And following that, what just like the example that I've showed, is we have our subnet 1. So we have the subnet 1 prefix, and over here, for example, we can just take 10.0.0.0/24, and that would include 255 address spaces in that particular subnet, and which is also part of that VNet. And the same thing is just corresponding to that, we have the subnet name, and we're just taking the subnet name. We want stuff in Azure to be as parameterized as possible, so that we can actually take this boilerplate and go to our next problem and just make minimal changes to this code and just add and take off more resources as needed. So we can see here we have the same thing for the subnet 2, the prefix as well. Over here, the only the distinction is that we just gave it a default value of 10.0.1.0/24, just meaning that if no other values are provided in the parameters.json file, we are going to be using the default value of 10.0.1.0/24. And the subnet name is generally the same as the parameter for subnet 1. The thing that is different though is the location parameter. As we can see, when we are doing the location, we just popped it as a string, and the default value for our location is we are using a function in ARM templates. A function in ARM templates is actually denoted by this. So if you have two quotation marks and then you have a square brackets inside of it, that denotes a function, and you can start using this function to get resource group IDs, resource group names. This is something that will come in a clutch when you're doing your templates, this sort of functioning. And after that, let's get on to the variables. Let's see what we have to add into our variables now. Alrighty guys, just in this particular ARM template we have no variables, but let's get on to the resource. So yeah, just for the resource, we have a VNet 1. So let's do VNet over here, and we have this. If autocomplete works, VNet, yes, and over here VNet works. So we have location. Let's use the location parameter instead of the resource group or location name. So yeah, just for that, let's take off all of this and let's do parameters, and then the square the circle bracket, and then we just search for location. And now we can see that the autocomplete has properly set up. And now what we want to do is a virtual network name. So let's do this. Let's delete both of them. Let's start this, and let's call this parameters, and let's call it virtual networks, if that is correct. Nope, it is not. It is the VNet name. And now we can see that this has been it has actually come back to life. So now we can know that there is some sort of linting happening over here. Let's see, must be of virtual networks. Location parameters, location, display VNet, address prefix. And yes, we do have an address prefix over here, but what is the address prefix? It is going to be, yes, it's going to be this. So let's do this, let's do this, let's do our parameters again, and let's do VNet address prefix. Yeah, so that over here we have the different subnets available. So what we'll do is let's just do this now. So let's call it variables, and then let's call it the subnet 1 name, just so that we have that. And let's replace this with the parameters variables, and we have subnet 1 prefix. I'm stupid. Let's change this. to parameters of subnet name, subnet prefix. So that's worked. And let's change this again to parameters of subnet one name, and now that's gone. Now let's just change the references over here as well. Parameters of subnet 2 name, and let's just change this particular thing as well. There is a mistake somewhere. Yep, it is, because I didn't do this. And let me change this again to parameters of subnet 2 prefix. And now let's go back to our linting, and we can see everything has passed this stuff. Now let's just go back here, see what's the error here. Type is virtual networks must be of the following, yabba yabba yabba. This sounds good enough for me. And now we have the Azure deploy file that is all ready. And if you click on the bottom left corner, so there is a parameter file. If you just click on that, you can just do this. Parameters, only required parameters, and you want to just hit save then, and this one automatically generates the file for us. So we can just pop in the values as expected, and this can be our new reference file. But let me just do a cleanup of the values. Save the values, and let's just call the VNet name as Azure VNet Demo 1, and let's just give it an address space of 10.0.0.0/16, and subnet 1 prefix will be 10.0.0.0/24 address spaces, and this is going to be called subnet 1. Let's go back to our Azure deploy file, and we can see that yes, we've given it a default names, and we provided everything that we can. And let's just save it, and yeah, now this is looking good. Last episode where we actually did everything in the Azure portal, so let's just continue to do that in this point. So what we're going to do is we're just going to be copying this, and we're going to be going into Azure DevOps now. Let's go into our pipelines. Let's go into the previous project we've just created. So let's go back here, and we have the template var demo. So yeah, let's just click on that, and let's just go onto the repos, and we can see that we have the 80 pipelines and variables like we did last time. We have the common vars.yaml, and the 80 pipeline right there is empty. So what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be creating a new folder right here. We're going to be naming it arm, and we're just going to be giving it a readme.md just so that we can actually create this. And this is going to be arm templates. And we're just going to commit this so that all these changes stays in our repository. And now we have arm. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a new file. We're going to be creating a new file here, and we're going to be calling it arm.azure deploy.json. And we're going to be going back here and just copying all of this data in and committing this. Sweet. And the next thing we are going to be doing is we're just going to be creating a new file here, Azure deploy.parameters.json. So yes, so that is also done. Let's go to our Azure parameters file. Let's go paste that in here and commit that. So now we have the ARM templates in our particular thing. So now let's get started on creating the pipeline so that we can actually start having a two-stage approach here. One where we test and validate all of our architecture is all good, and the next one is where we actually deploy everything. So yeah, let's get started. Alrighty guys, so what we're going to be doing is, and so over here we can see that the trigger is none. We have no pull request options available for this particular pipeline, and then we have a couple of stages, and we are just naming one stage arm_template_test, and we have a couple of jobs in this. Just one job, it's going to be arm template test, and then we're going to be having the next step. So let's go to show assistant. Just let's click arm template deployment, and we can select the resource group, and we already have created the service connection earlier. I'm just going to be selecting that, and it's going to be my Azure Pass subscription. It's going to be whatever subscription that you guys have. The action is going to be create or update a resource group. The resource group in question is going to be the one that we've just created today, dev-template-test AZD pipeline. Or is it VNet demo 1? The location, I'm going to be keeping this in East US. And yeah, over here, because we are having the JSON files right now with our things, I'm going to be using that in the template. So the template location would be, so there are a couple of already pre-existing variables that are available in the Azure DevOps, and one of them is the system.default working directory, and this just points to the root of all of the files, all of the repos in the directory. So that's what I'm using that to create the FQDN, or the fully qualified path over here. So it's going to be system.default working directory /arm/azure deploy.json. We're going to be doing the same thing here. Let's copy that entire thing, paste that in. Let me find, what is it called? Yep, by just going into my repos, going into the arm, finding this, and just copying that. Now what we can do is just fix our little and that's it. The only thing we're going to be doing is we're just going to be a validation right now. So let's just do a validation, and it has completed. So this is part of our particular two-stage pipeline, where one of our stages is just going to be validating all of the Azure resource deployment, and the next stage would be where we actually deploy. So yeah, let's get started. So, and the next thing is we're going to be having the next stage of our deployment. It's going to be if I can type, template deploy, and we're just going to be having a couple of jobs here. Jobs, we're going to be having one job, and we're just going to be calling the job template deploy. The only thing that we might want to add on this particular stage is we're going to be adding the depends on, and we're just going to be depending on the previous stage. So it's going to be template test condition succeeded, just like that. So now this one will only deploy once the previous stage has succeeded. And now let's get back to our jobs. Let's do this steps, and now we can just go to our little task over here. Let's go to arm deployment template. Let's follow the same things. Let's select the service connection. Let's just select the subscription, the resource create, resource group. Let's do VNet demo 1. Location would be East US. And the templates are just the stuff that we previously did. So it would be just this CSM file be located here. That's just a template. And then our parameters.json file would be here, and incremental, we just add. Yes, so that's where you should really make sure that you know where your things are sitting. Validate and save. Let me save that. It looks like it's all good. Let me run my pipeline and let's see. I need to provide access, so let me just permit that real quick. So now I've actually authorized for this pipeline to run, the service principal to access this pipeline anyway. So now what we are going to be doing is, well, there are two stages here: the ARM template test, which is going to be testing. Let's see if our skills are any good. The deployment name has succeeded. So yeah, our first stage has succeeded. So now what it's going to be doing, it's going to be triggering the next stage to run. So let me just go here just to see, and now it's started to run. Now it's checked out as well. And let's see what's happening here. Employee deployment was successful, and now we have started the deployments. So now it's all about waiting and seeing what's up. So yeah, now we can see that our pipeline has completed. All of the steps have gotten good. So now we know that A, our ARM template successfully passed validation, and B, it has been deployed via Azure DevOps. So let's go to our portal and see. And so let's go visit our resource group VNet Demo 1, and we can see that we have Azure VNet Demo 1 as the virtual network. And then let's go into subnets just to verify everything is all good. And here, so we have subnet 1 and subnet 2, and everything is all good. So yeah, see you next time, guys.